Hello, everyone. I've been putting this off partially because I've not been able to get around to watching the full movie the way I want to and be able to like properly pay attention, but also just because, yeah, like, this was not easy for me to get through. Um, so we're going to be talking about the Kamen Rider O's 10th anniversary movie. Uh, I was so excited for this. I was so excited for this. Here we go. We have the culmination of 10 years of anticipation and all the teases from the movies in between where Oz and Ankh appeared. Wondering like are they ever going to tell the story of how Ankh gets resurrected? Because we did know from the previous O's movie where Ankh came back from 40 years in the future. Yeah, Eiji succeeds. He actually does bring Ankh back to life. And the question after that was just how long does it take? We got a brief appearance. We got a brief appearance in a movie where a Ankh was temporarily revived. We were still waiting. Could they actually like get around to telling the story of like how Ankh really comes back? They did. Um, I didn't think I would regret seeing it. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a lot of spoilers to this. If you haven't seen the movie, don't. But also, if you haven't seen the movie, there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to talk about. But I've had a lot of people asking me my thoughts on the movie. So here we go. Here's a whole bunch of thoughts at you. They ain't good. So first off, like the tone of the movie feels off. It feels like we're in this like post-apocalyptic setting, seeing all the main cast, seeing all the B cast in loose like semi-military garb, flak jackets, assault rifles. Something about Hina with an assault rifle is just wrong on every level. It just doesn't feel like I don't know. It doesn't feel like the tone O's had. It feels like an attempt to make the stakes as high as possible without actually explaining how the stakes got this high. Um, we do kind of get some explanation, of course, because we see the Greeed are back, and inexplicably, Ancient Oz is back, the original king from 800 years ago. They don't explain how he came back, just like something about the void that Dr. Maki created let him get to the future. I don't know. There's no indication that he was even alive. There, like none. So I don't know how that works out. Um, and he's like a bait and switch anyway. Like the whole movie feels like bait and switch because he's not. He's what they like. Like they mentioned that there was going to be a new Greed Goda in the movie, but it was really like played up like Ancient Oz was going to be the main villain, and he wasn't. He's there for most of it, and then we bait and switch. Goda is actually the main villain. You know, we like there's no explanation for that. There's no explanation for how the Greed came back. Like again, it was just like Goda in traveling through the void found all the metals that got lost with Dr. Maki, and now here they are. And but it completely ignores the fact that the Greed lost the core consciousness metal. All of them were destroyed. So the Greed should be dead, just the same way Ankh was dead. So really, like the movie should have been about Eiji finding Ancient O's, seeing the Greed alive, and trying to find out, like trying to battle Ancient O's, and in order to find out how to bring Ankh back to life. There's a net movie that was previewing this where Eiji mentions that he found a way to do it. It was completely vague, and this movie didn't really depict it, unless like the dumbest thing in this movie was intentional. But I don't know. Like it just felt like we had to put the Greed back in because it's the O's 10th, so we have to put the Greed in. We don't really explain it, and we kind of ignore the fact that there shouldn't be any way this is possible, but we'll go ahead and go with it. Um, yeah, there's just I wish there was a little bit better explanation for these things. I also don't know why in 10 years there aren't more birth drivers going around. You'd think like with Eiji wandering around and all the things that the Kogami Foundation went up against, they'd mass produce a few birth drivers and make more than like one upgrade attachment to one. They don't do anything like that. They just kind of, we got the two we always had, and that was it. There should have been a whole scene of like 20 births teaming up on all of these different Greeds, because like if they can make 2 birth drivers in 1 year, they can make 20. It was frustrating. It was like obvious things that should have happened that didn't make sense. I know part of it's storytelling, trying to make them seem like they're backs against the wall, and the return of Eiji is the only hope they have, and it's kind of how it plays out. Eiji coming back and starting to fight, especially the fight against Uva. That's kind of our introduction. Like, this is like how strong the Greed are right now and how like outmatched everyone is without Eiji. I can't imagine Eiji being away from his friends for so long, especially after the O's ending, where he would not be aware, be able to return when something this bad was happening. I don't know. Getting all that out of the way. Let's focus on what actually happened in the movie. So, yeah, what you find out in the movie is that we're not actually watching Eiji. Let's talk about bait and switch. Eiji's dead for the entire movie. He died in a flashback, and we are watching Goda pilot his body the same way Ankh pilots bodies, which is disheartening. When you go into a 10th anniversary movie like this, you want one final adventure with your favorite characters together, and what you get is the main character, basically someone like pretending, role playing the main character. You don't get Eiji. You get someone who is semi acting like Eiji, but things are kind of off, like almost like someone role playing as Eiji. And they do it so that we can put some of the old dynamic between Ankh and Eiji in kind of like, because Ankh knows something is wrong here, and he doesn't completely trust this Eiji, so it lets us get back to that old format where he's very like, where Ankh is very aggressive and very much somewhat antagonistic toward Eiji, like to give us that familiar feel. And they put in flashbacks to kind of emphasize that. But it just feels off. Like, after all the character development those two went through, after like the final words they had with each other in the series, don't you want to see them have an adventure where they're actually getting along? Don't you want to actually have screen time where they are actually, friends, and Ankh actually does care about people? That's what it was. That's what you hope for out of like an anniversary reunion like this. Imagine, you watch like Gokai, like one of those Super Sentai's 10th, and you find out, oh no, the Pink Ranger's been dead this whole time. What? You don't do it. You don't do it. All right. So, like I said, bait and switch, the movie. The Greed are in here, and the Greed are in here, and only Uva does anything. They're in here basically just for the sake of nostalgia, and then they become a power-up for Ancient O's. Ancient O's then gets beaten in one fight, so we don't get to have him as a main villain, even though he is far bigger. He's a far bigger threat in the main storyline of O's in general. No, it's Goda, who before now was perfectly fine fighting the Greed and following Eiji's desires, but he immediately gets corrupted by power as soon as he has the opportunity for it. The one interesting thing you had here was a Greed who was trying to be a hero because he was trying to fulfill Eiji's desires, which the whole series of O's is about Eiji having no desires of his own, only to kind of realize that, wanting to save people is a desire, and it's a huge one, so a Greed acting on that should be a far bigger deal, but he just kind of throws that away just because I have to be the big villain now. I think Goda as another heroic Greed would have been far more interesting to play out. Instead, we got, villain number 2 in the movie. And keep in mind, this movie's only like an hour long. When we ditch the Greed for the sake of Ancient O's getting a power up, and then we ditch Ancient O's for the sake of Goda, that's 3 villain bait and switches within an hour of each other. Aside from the fact that we also bait and switch the fact that we're not actually watching Eiji. We only get to see Eiji in one conversation with Ankh, and that is when Eiji is dying. Because he's in the same limbo state that Hina's brother was in. The only reason he's alive is because he has a Greed possessing him and keeping him alive. I don't like this at all. At all. It's a plot device revolving around getting Ankh and Eiji in one bite so that Ankh could possess Eiji. And I understand that. Apparently that's why we have Taja Doru Eternity. I assume that's why, because the metals power up with absolutely no explanation other than that, other than how strong their bond is. I'm assuming. Just a lot of it here that doesn't have explanation. There's no explanation why the Greed came back without their primary metal. There's no explanation for why Ancient O's was still alive. There's no explanation for why Godo turned evil. There's no explanation for why there's no more birth drivers. There's no explanation for why Birth X is so weak. God. Birth X is such a waste. It's such a cool design. I love the design on Birth X, but oh my God. It's so wasted because he doesn't even get to win a fight. And I hate. I've seen that in recent Rider movies where they have a new power up, someone gets a new strength, someone gets a new form, and it immediately gets jobbed out. No. We want to see our heroes be heroes. When someone gets a fancy new power up, you want to see it be cool. You don't want to see it it's frustrating. This whole movie was so many things that were just frustrating to witness. And the continuity is a mess in this one. There's a second O's driver around now. There's no explanation for why, because that's kind of a thing in this show that there's only one of them. The Greed are in their full strength bodies, even though they don't have all of their medals. There's no explanation for that, outside of just, I assume that production wanted to be lazy and not have to switch suits around. There's no explanation for Birth X's medals not, having a theme song for Birth X's name rather than your traditional metal harmony. Because the whole thing in O's is the combos sing a song because the metals harmonize with each other. That's where you hear the combined name songs going in. I know it's a man-made device that can do whatever it wants. I don't know. It was one last straw on the pile of all the continuity things that screwed with me. So I have to throw it in there. The big one here is in this end scene where Ankh and Eiji are talking to each other inside Eiji's dying brain. They actually have a very emotional chat, and Ankh is really hurt, really upset, crying. Ankh is crying. The whole plot of the villains in O's is that the Greed can't feel anything. It's the entire reason why they are called Greed. It is what drives them. The entirety of their motivation in O's is to be able to feel something. Mezul tries to feel something by pretending to be a mother to Gamel. Gamel is pretending to be a childlike figure trying to have some form of emotion. Ankh is obsessed with Ankh is obsessed with ice cream, ice candy is actually what it is in Japan. But he's obsessed with popsicles because when he's in that human body, he actually gets to experience taste. The Greed being able to feel something should be a much bigger deal than how it felt in this one. It's not lampshaded at all. Eiji just kind of gives this little reassuring speech, smiling like an idiot the whole time, and I don't know. It felt like it should have been a much stronger moment than it was. Because it should be a big deal that Ankh can experience emotion now, and I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was given the gravitas it should have given. A lot of things in this were not given the gravitas it should have. Birth X just shows up, gets beaten. Tajador Eternity's fight scene is incredibly underwhelming. It feels like a very half-hearted attempt to recreate the final fight from O's. It has none of the emotional impact. It doesn't have any of the, it doesn't have the intensity of it. Part of it is because the music in the scene is so generic. There's just nothing special about it. It's not the theme. It's not, it's not Tajador's theme. It's not Time Judged All. There's a brand new version of Time Judged All that they sung like a couple years ago. Not only I think does it sound a little bit better, but they changed up the lyrics to be more in tune to how Ank's character changed. So it's a little bit more cooperative. It's like the original one had a little bit of that competitiveness still in it. This one was more, the union and friendship they had. I really wish they'd used that. That would have been perfect. I don't know, aside from the new forms look cool, the new forms look awesome, but everything after that just kind of grated on me. I'm reading through my notes. Is there anything else? Because I'm saving off the one till the end, but yeah, okay. So I got through a lot. Okay, got through a lot of little nitpicky stuff. Stop killing the writers. Oh my god. You're a superhero franchise. Stop killing people off, especially when it's O's. When they did a poll in Japan and found out that O's is one of the most popular Heisei series. And why on earth would you kill the main character? Why? I even saw something where the writer for O's actually said this is how they want, this is how they intended the story to end or something. This is completely what they wanted. Why would you do that? Why would you write the ending of the story basically a role reversal of the previous end of the story, except with a far more depressing undertone? Because, okay, it's superheroes, Kamen Rider, you can bring someone back to life, but an artificially created being like Ankh can't, there's an easier, it's an easier thing to accept that that's a character who can be brought back and resurrected. A human, not so much. We've got a lot of dead writers in the series, and they don't come back most of the time. It sucks. God, it sucks. It sucks seeing Decade die. It sucks seeing Vulcan die. They both, Decade's death at least felt like somewhat how the character needs to end. I think it's a very poor timing, and again, a lackluster showing for a new form. But also, I feel like Decade's journey is looking for some kind of finality to it. I think that was the wrong place and the wrong format to depict it, but I also kind of feel like we're going to see Decade again at some point, so I'm not really, frustrated over that. Vulcan dying. Why? That was so pointless. That was absolutely pointless. That was trying to, that was just forcing in some melancholy for the sake of doing it. At the end of this movie, there's no victory. There's no heroic triumph. The main villain that started this was killed off in a nothing battle that was anticlimactic. The fight with Goda was anticlimactic. The main hero is dead. Everyone is sad. We leave on a shot of Tomorrow's underpants that shall never be worn. This is a thoroughly depressing movie. It's a reminder of what O's is. It spends half the time reminding you what Kamen Rider O's was, and the rest of its time doing everything that Kamen Rider O's isn't. It cannot keep its own continuity straight. It cannot focus on a single villain. It cannot deliver a strong fight scene. And there's no victory at the end. Not only did they completely undo the victory we had at the end of O's, they've given you no victory whatsoever to take from this series. Ankh is back. Great. Eiji's dead. It's a duo. If one is alive and the other is not, you've failed. You have failed to make your fans happy. You have failed to present a good resolution to the story. I hate this movie. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because I've got a complete set of O's medals, and then they were doing like, here's the 10th anniversary stuff. You can buy the driver separately, and like here's the new spinner, and like there's 6 new medals. It'll cost you $500 to get all of it. I'm not spending $500 for 6 coins and about 5 extra sound effects. I'm just not doing that. And if this movie was great, here's the thing: if this movie was great, I would consider it. Like, if the movie was great, I'd consider it. But the movie is like, if I looked at those like parakeet colored, Tajador medals, I would just be depressed. I would just be upset. This movie's depressing. So like, there's part of me that's like, they're cool looking, but I don't want them. Like I don't $500 want them. I like if I can get the medals for like $100 off Mandarake, want them. Like that's the extent of it. But even then, I'm like, you didn't make something that encourages me to spend money. O's was so good, I wanted to spend money every week. I was like coming up with like strategies for how to spend money on O's because O medals sold out so fast, and like you had to have some kind of like, you had to know when they were releasing and how to get your order in as fast as possible. And like I was like an Olympic sprinter looking to shave seconds off of their lap time. I was doing that, trying to get my logins. Like me and Aaron from the TFW 2005 podcast would kind of like go over notes like, if you copy paste your password and you can paste it in, instead of like typing it out, you'll get like 3 seconds faster. And like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, we'll write that down. Literally, that's how good O's was when it came out. And now this, my only hope is that at some point they correct this too. We get one more O's special, or we get one more return, in a movie, and we get like one last chance to like fix this. I just wonder how many times they can kill off popular writers in these movies and not have a repercussion from it. Like, at some point, it just feels like you're just upsetting fans too much and you got to course correct somewhere. And this is the one where I really hope they do that. All right, I've rambled long enough. Those are my thoughts on O's Core Medal of Resurrection. This might be, I don't know if it's the worst Kamen Rider movie, but it's certainly the one that's left me like the worst feeling. Like, it's certainly the one that I want to see the least again. So take that for what it is worth from, like a 10 plus year Kamen Rider fan. Don't watch it. Even if you're invested in O's, I still wouldn't watch it. Yeah, I'm just disappointed all the way around. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.